Hello, YouTube. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, CPR Originals. And today, I'm going to try to come back to YouTube. I took a little bit longer break than I thought I was going to. I'd only planned on taking a month. And then my summer was busier than I thought it was going to be. And then some other things in life happened. So I'm going to try to come back with a $20 Thanksgiving challenge because I've been seeing these all over the place. And it's fun that some of the content I enjoy watching. I like seeing how creative people can be with a small budget to come up with dinners. So, because I'm doing this kind of last minute-ish, I'm not going to do any cooking in this video. I'm not going to show you any recipes. There's lots of videos out there that will help you, but I thought that what might be helpful is to go through my thought process and how I came up with my menu for this challenge and how I tweaked it to where I thought it would work for me and make it reasonable. And then also give you some ideas of how you can cut back from what I did to make it reasonable for you and how you can change some things out and what, maybe to help someone come up with who's trying to figure out what they're going to do for Thanksgiving and they have limited funds at this point and what they think they can do. So, first off, I started with what freebies do I think most people are going to have in their kitchen that I can use for this challenge that nobody's going to say, oh my gosh, I got to go out and spend that. Spend money on that. So I've got oil and some basic seasonings here. And I think most of these seasonings, most people will have because, except for possibly the poultry seasoning, but you could use any general all-purpose seasoning. But it's Thanksgiving. There's probably going to be a bird of some sort involved. So poultry seasoning is probably a good seasoning to add in there. So I'm allowing myself salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion, either minced onion or onion powder. I have minced onion in this picture. Onion powder I think would be a little easier to use. I just could not find it for this picture. And then, of course, there's the poultry seasoning because there's probably going to be a bird involved, which, again, might not have poultry seasoning, but you might have a general all-purpose seasoning that you could use in its place. So then, watching all these Thanksgiving challenges, I thought to my brain, I kind of broke it down into the components that people are presenting on their challenges and started thinking, how would I approach this? How can I make things more cost effective? What things am I going to miss? What things do I think it's better to just not even do if you have to do a scaled down version of it because you're going to feel like you're missing something. So I started watching these videos with that approach. And so, I'll break it down, how I broke things down and how I thought about each category. First off, appetizers. A lot of people do appetizers with their Thanksgiving dinner. My family, we never did appetizers with our Thanksgiving dinner. Our Thanksgiving tradition, get up, we have a big breakfast, kind of a late breakfast. And then we'd have a late lunch probably around 2:00 in the afternoon with the big dinner. So typically, if we ate anything between breakfast and lunch, it was just snacking on leftovers from breakfast because there was such a big breakfast, there was usually leftovers. So appetizers to me is the easiest place for me to cut the budget that I'm not going to miss. So appetizers, if I have room for them in my budget, I'll put them in there. That was my decision. So appetizers, that was my approach to appetizers. The next is the main. Well, traditionally turkey, ham, those are your traditional mains for Thanksgiving. Some people will put a chicken in for these challenges instead of a turkey because it's more cost effective. I don't like ham. So ham is definitely going to be out for my main. Chicken and turkey. It's Thanksgiving. You need turkey of some sort. You could do a chicken, but if I were to do a chicken, I would do a Cornish game hen because every now and then we would do Cornish game hens, more so for Christmas than Thanksgiving as our meal, just for something different, but still have that traditional feel. And that would be a possibility, but I don't know exactly if I could get my hands on a Cornish game hen economically, so that's not realistic. So we're going to go with turkey in some form. What form of turkey? I don't know. It's going to depend on what's cost effective. There's a couple different options out there that would be cost effective. I mean, a lot of people will do lunch meat turkey. So, turkey, try to figure out what I can do where I'm not skimping. That's my main. And if you got turkey, you're going to have dressing and gravy. Now, might consider dressing and gravy sides, but if you got turkey, I kind of include them with the main in my brain because those, they go together. They go together and they say Thanksgiving. So that's what I need to try to work in my budget. Turkey, dressing, gravy. Those are must-haves without me feeling like I'm being deprived for Thanksgiving dinner. So the next part is sides. First thing I need to figure out, how many sides do I want? I mean, I already have the dressing and gravy, which are technically sides, but I'm not going to count them as sides. A typical dinner for me, everyday dinner, is going to be a main and a side. So one side, everyday dinner. If I do a big dinner, 2 sides. Okay. Special dinner, I think, needs 3 sides. So let's think about 3 sides. What are the typical sides that most people I've seen in this challenge do? Mashed potatoes, sweet potato souffle, or sweet potato casserole, green bean casserole. Those are the typical sides I see people do, that's 3. And I thought about those sides. First off, we never had mashed potatoes as a side for Thanksgiving. I mean, maybe once or twice, but that wasn't always there. So if there's no mashed potatoes, I'm not going to notice. I'm not going to care. So mashed potatoes is a side I can easily rule out. Granted, you can get instant mashed potatoes and it's not very expensive, but I could take them or leave them. They don't have to be there. So I'm going to rule out mashed potatoes as a side. Green bean casserole. We were not a green bean casserole family. We didn't grow up eating green bean casserole. I enjoy green bean casserole. I will make a green bean casserole, but if there's not a green bean casserole on Thanksgiving dinner, I'm not going to feel deprived. We did typically have green beans cooked on the stove, sometimes with potatoes in them, sometimes just green beans. And if you're going with just a fairly basic 1 ingredient dinner, it's not really 1 ingredient because you're going to season it and those add ingredients. But if you go with a 1 ingredient side, that saves you money right there. My idea actually has 2 ingredients. What I'm going to end up doing with my green beans in my brain, but 1 ingredient, that's going to save me money. So green beans, we're going to put green beans in. So green beans are good. Sweet potato souffle, sweet potato casserole. Again, that's not something we had. I'm also not very fond of sweet potato souffle and sweet potato casseroles. I don't like to add anything sweet to my sweet potatoes. I don't like my sweet potatoes any sweeter than they naturally are. If I have a baked sweet potato, I just want butter, salt, and pepper on it. If I do roasted sweet potatoes in the oven, I'm just going to put some oil and some different seasoning on them depending on what mood I'm in. So a plain basic sweet potato, that's good. So now we've got 2 sides. We've got green beans and we got sweet potatoes. There's 2 sides. I need to come up with 1 more side. Well then, there's the macaroni and cheese, which is always on the table on Thanksgiving in my family. That's always there. But all these budget videos, they started with a box mac and cheese. Some of them zhuzhed them up a little bit. Some of them just did the box mac and cheese. And if you don't already have the other ingredients to do within your meal plan that you're not using somewhere else, it's not going to be cost effective to do mac and cheese anywhere other than a plain box mix. And if you put a plain box mix on Thanksgiving table dinner for me, I'm going to feel let down by the macaroni and cheese. So I'd rather not have macaroni and cheese than have a macaroni and cheese that I'm going to feel let down by. So I'm crossing off macaroni and cheese as a potential side. So now I got 1 more side to come up. So I started thinking about things that my family would have. Sometimes we'd have corn, typically fried corn. or some sort of corn casserole. That would show up occasionally. Broccoli casserole was fairly common in my household. Something that my mom would make. My brother and I would eat it. We liked it. I'm not really feeling Thanksgiving broccoli casserole. I mean, it is good. It's something that we have, but I'm not feeling Thanksgiving casserole, broccoli casserole, Thanksgiving. Corn, I could take or leave. Squash, we usually had some sort of squash. Sometimes yellow squash, usually butternut or acorn squash, and roasted in the oven. Again, those are single ingredient things. I actually enjoy. I look forward to the butternut and acorn squash on Thanksgiving. I know you get butternut squash year round now. I don't really eat it year round. So that squash in some description, that's going to make it as my third side. So my sides are going to be green beans, squash of some description, sweet potatoes of some description. Then we got cranberry sauce, which I'm not a fan of cranberry sauce. I like dried cranberries and things. I like cranberries with some stuff, but I'm not a fan of cranberry sauce. Cranberry sauce is something I can eliminate, but a lot of people are going to feel let down if there's no cranberries. Something I have done before, and actually I got this off a frozen dinner, and I thought it was very good, so it's something I do from time to time, is steamed buttered green beans with dried cranberries in them that are kind of rehydrated when they cooked with the green beans. And it's really pretty good. And then you use cranberry pie too. So that also fancies up your green bean side. So it's not just a plain green beans. So there we go. There's my sides, I'm thinking, before I go and start looking at pricing, etc. So the next component is dessert. Here's where I'm starting to get a little creative. Well, dessert, what do I want? I really want a pecan pie. Not just some store-bought pecan pie. I want my mama's recipe of pecan pie, which was my grandmother's recipe of pecan pie. My mom put her own little spin on it. If I'm going to eat a pecan pie, that's the one I want. The store-bought ones that other people make, they have more filling and less pecans than the filling to pecan ratio is not what I prefer. That's more on the filling side than the pecan side, in my opinion. And my family recipe is more the pecan side than the filling. So pecan pie. I feel like that's going to be budget breaker, but that's going to be my ideal dessert. That's going to be my ideal dessert is going to be pecan pie. What are some kind of cost-effective things that still say Thanksgiving? Well, not really. This doesn't really say Thanksgiving to me, but it usually reminds me of holidays. Is coconut cake. My mom had a very simple coconut icing recipe that was essentially 2 ingredients. I need to find it to verify those 2 ingredients, but it's essentially 2 ingredients. And then you get a box cake mix. Okay, that's another potential cost-effective dessert. Okay. A third potential cost-effective dessert that still says Thanksgiving would be a fruit pie. You can, I'm doing this in hindsight, but that was one of my things I was thinking of. When I actually priced things, when I looked at pricing things, the pie crust and the fruit filling was a little bit more than what I was thinking before I went into this. But again, this was not it was kind of my third idea for a dessert. So I wasn't sad that it was more expensive than I thought because it was my third idea. Fourth idea, kind of fourth and fifth idea, is something a little bit more pre-made. A cookie mix. Those are usually pretty cost effective. So cookie mix is potential for dessert. Doesn't say Thanksgiving to me, but it's a dessert, so that's potential. Another potential is buying some sort of frozen pie or a pre-made pie because usually you can get them on sale this time of year. That might fit in the budget. So I've got some dessert ideas. So I've got simple sides. I've got my main idea. Appetizers, I can scratch them if I don't have them in my budget. And if I do appetizers, I'm going to look at what ingredients I bought and what can I do with those to turn those into appetizers, if I do appetizers. And then desserts, I've got a few ideas. Got to figure out what's the most cost effective, and not necessarily the most cost effective, but how I can get the most bang for my buck. Because the cookies, again, it's a dessert. It doesn't say Thanksgiving to me, but it's a dessert. But if the budget, I'd rather, and that's going to probably be the most economical thing, but I'd rather have something else that says Thanksgiving. So where's my trade-offs? So after I'm coming up with my rough menu, I said, well, what are some things I have around the house that I can include that I'm going to need in this potential menu that I have that some people are going to have. I don't know that everybody's going to have. I don't even want to say most people are going to have. So these are my other potentially including freebies. Chicken bouillon. I always keep the chicken bouillon. It's useful. It would be useful to bulk up any turkey broth I have, to make a gravy or for the dressing. So chicken bouillon, it's fairly common. You can get chicken bouillon at the Dollar Tree for $1.25, more than enough than what you would want to use in this meal. So I figured chicken bouillon, that's an okay inclusion. Flour, because if I'm making my own gravy, I'm gonna need a little flour to thicken it. Most people have flour. I don't need enough to buy a whole bag. I don't have, I'm not planning on making a pie crust and making anything from scratch. So I feel like including a little bit of flour is going to be acceptable. Sugar. I feel like most people have sugar. If I would need some sugar if I made a pecan pie, I would need a little bit of sugar. I think I need about a cup. I'm not looking at the recipe, but I need sugar. So again, I don't need enough worth buying a whole thing of sugar. So, and I feel like a lot of people are going to have sugar. So I feel like sugar is an okay inclusion. These next two inclusions are probably a little bit more controversial. Probably a little bit more controversial. Probably a little bit that people aren't going to have. But I always have these. I decided to include them. Eggs, because I would need 1 egg if I did the pecan pie. 2 eggs if I did a cake mix. And it's also possible if I have room in my budget, I might get a Jiffy cornbread mix, and I would need 1 egg for that. So I thought I would allow myself up to 2 eggs in my as freebies, just up to 2 eggs. Not, I feel like if I do more than two or 3 eggs, we're getting into I should buy eggs for this challenge. And then my last ingredient here that might be a little controversial that I'm creating as a freebie is butter, which you could totally use margarine, which is cheaper. For everything that I am thinking in my brain I'm going to use butter for, because I'm not making a pie crust. If I'm doing a pie, I'm buying a pre-made pie crust. So margarine's perfectly okay for everything that I was thinking about using the butter for. So that being said, I was like, can I reasonably do a 4-person Thanksgiving dinner within these parameters? Maybe I can, maybe I can't. It's all going to depend on the cost of my main. So I decided to make mine a $25 Thanksgiving challenge because I felt like that was going to get me pretty much what I wanted. So the first thing I did is I went into the Kroger app and I started inputting everything I needed for my sides. I got everything I needed for my sides in, and I was at $8.07, which if I was doing the $20 challenge would have left me $11.93 to get my main, which was the turkey, the dressing, and the gravy, and a dessert. And I might could do that. But that extra $5 is going to make sure I can do that and get all the elements I want for a family of 4 for a Thanksgiving dinner. So I've already done my shopping at this point. Now that I'm doing this, not in my thought process, but as I'm doing this, I ended up just going to Aldi because I knew that there was a few things that I'd put in my cart and Kroger that I could get a little few cents cheaper than Aldi. But the reason why I started with Kroger was because I can get individual produce items at Kroger, and I can't necessarily get individual produce items at Aldi. And I forgot to do one thing that I decided to include as a freebie, which is 1 onion, which is a decision I made after I started pricing things and deciding I was going to go to Aldi instead of Kroger, because I can't get individual onions at Aldi. An individual onion at Kroger would be around 50 cents. And I have an onion, so I just decided I would throw the onion in as a freebie as well, even though I didn't state that before this point, because in my thought process, I didn't decide on doing a freebie onion until I decided I wasn't going to go to more than one grocery store. So I'm going to show you the haul. When I recorded my haul, I had a different idea for how this video is going to go. So some of the things I say, I did an actual haul video, but when I was editing, I didn't like it. So I decided to go with photos and voiceover. So I bought for my main, which was turkey, dressing, gravy. I bought stuffing mix, 2 different stuffing mixes of the stovetop style variety. I bought a turkey breast that's a little over 7 pounds. It was $10.85, and it comes with a gravy packet. So there we go. We got turkey dressing and gravy. And I bought stuffing mixes, but to make them a little bit more my own and a little bit more special, a little bit more Thanksgiving, I got celery. So this is what I bought for my main. Now I'm going to break it down for you a little bit. I forgot to say when re-recording my haul that Aldi had a 1.8 pound turkey tenderloin for $6.55. This was pre-seasoned. They had rotisserie and cracked pepper flavoring. I spent the longest time going back and forth between the turkey tenderloin and the bone-in turkey breast with gravy. I think the turkey tenderloin would have been perfectly fine. I just opted for the turkey breast mainly because I could season it how I wanted. I didn't have to deal with it being pre-seasoned. But pre-seasoned actually probably would have been a good option too. And I also forgot to say that my total was $25.51. And in the end, when you get to the end of this, you will see I was 51 cents over my money budget and 1 egg over my freebie budget. And you can judge in the end how well you think I did, but I think I did pretty good. I don't think I actually met the challenge as I stated it out in the beginning, but I think I did a really good job. And I know I could have done better when you see how I break things down and how I think I could have changed some things up. Okay, so here is the breakdown of my cost for my main. The turkey was $10.85. The celery was 89 cents. The turkey stuffing was 89 cents. The cornbread stuffing was 75 cents. Total is $13.38. Over there on the left-hand side, you'll see what I would use for my freebies in here. I had the flour in there for some reason, but which we'll get to in the next slide. So I have my seasonings, my onion, my butter, and the chicken bouillon. This is how I would prepare the turkey. I would use half a stick of butter as well as some seasonings, and I would put that on the turkey, put the turkey in the crock pot, put a little bit of water in there, maybe a cup or so, because it will create its own juices, but we don't want it to dry out. And that'll also help make some broth there. I would use the broth from the turkey that was created with turkey and mix it with the dressing to kind of, not the dressing, the gravy to kind of expand that. The stuffing mix, how I would handle that and how I would make my stuffing, or dressing rather. I would cut up, that onion is actually probably a bigger onion than what I need. I probably only need about half that onion. And I would cut up maybe 2 stalks of celery. I don't like a lot of celery. I like celery in my dressing, but not a heap of celery. So 1 to 2 stalks, probably 1.5 stalks, somewhere in there. And I would saute my chopped up celery and my chopped up onion in that other half a stick of butter. Then I would mix that with my dressing mixes. These thing about these box stuffing mixes, they're already seasoned. So you really don't necessarily need to use broth with it, even though that is my preferred method. But I would probably make up some chicken broth with the chicken bouillon to use to pour over my dressing. And then I would bake it in the oven because I just prefer a baked dressing. That's how I would approach my cooking and of this portion of the meal. Now let's look at some changes I could have made. So I could have substituted out that turkey breast with the turkey tenderloins, and that would have been $6.55. Celery would still be the same. I could have done 2 cornbread stuffings instead of a turkey stuffing and a cornbread stuffing. I just kind of like the idea of the mix, get the best of both worlds. And that would have saved me another 14 cents because that would have taken that down to 75 cents for that one stuffing, which would make my total $8.94, which would be a total savings of $4.44, which makes our adjusted total $20.07. We're getting close to that $20 challenge there. With those few simple changes. The reason why I had the flour in this picture is because if I were to do the turkey tenderloins, I would cook the turkey tenderloins on the stovetop. I would use some flour. I would use some of the chicken broth made from the chicken bouillon and use the drippings in the pan, the brown bits left on the bottom of the pan, to make a pan gravy for my gravy for this, for the option with the turkey tenderloins. So that's an adjustment, and maybe might give you some other ideas of how to come up with a good Thanksgiving dinner on a budget. So now let's look at my sides haul. Okay, here's what I got for my sides. I purchased a bag of frozen green beans, a bag of dried cranberries, a 3-pound bag of sweet potatoes, and an acorn squash. So I will give you my price breakdown in a minute and what I plan to do with these items. Okay, let's break down the sides now. What I bought for my sides was frozen bag of green beans. They were 69 cents. Cranberries were $1.89. Sweet potatoes were $1.95. My acorn squash was $2.27, making my total $6.80. The way I would most likely cook these is I would cut my acorn squash into quarters because I feel like a quarter of an acorn squash is plenty for per person because it's a fairly large squash. So I'd cut it in quarters, seed it, put some oil and some seasonings on it, put it on a sheet pan, pop it in the oven. Sweet potatoes, I'd bought a bag of sweet potatoes, so it was a 3-pound bag of sweet potatoes that had 4 sweet potatoes in it. I took 2 because I feel like 2 is plenty to split between 4 people, half a sweet potato per person. I most likely would take the easy way, just wash them up, pop them on the oven, and probably on the sheet pan next to the acorn squash, and just bake them. That would be my most likely, but I could cut them up, toss them in some oil and seasonings, and roast cubes of sweet potatoes. That would be another option. And then the green beans, I would steam them on the stove with a little bit of water. I'd put a little bit of water in the bottom of a pot, steam them. And I forgot to put the butter with my freebies in this picture, but that's okay. I would steam them in a little bit of water. When they were about done, I would throw a handful of cranberries in there and some butter and some seasonings and mix it up. And that would be my green bean side. So my sides, fairly simple, straightforward, good sides you don't have to be fancy with your sides. At least I don't feel like you have to be fancy with your sides. Sometimes I feel like when you get fancy, you just add too much stuff and your core ingredient loses its identity. So I think that's probably why I like simple, straightforward sides. Now let's see what savings I could do. Here's my reality. My reality is if I were to go to Kroger and get 2 individual sweet potatoes, I would have been able to also pick up the onion, probably for a little less than that $1.95 price point, but I'm not 100% sure because they're done by weight. So we're just going to say it's a wash. My reality is I can go to Kroger. On my way from home from Kroger, I can stop by both Aldi and Dollar Tree because Dollar Tree is exactly on my way home from Kroger. Aldi, I have to go maybe a quarter mile down a different road and then back to the main road to get to Aldi. So not a big deal for me to go to those 3 places in one trip. I'm not going to really waste any gas. So that's my reality. So I could go to, like I said, I'd go to Kroger, just get the 2 individual sweet potatoes, save a little bit of money there, and I could get the 1 individual onion. So we could take that out of the freebie pile and put it into the budget. And then the other thing I could do is I could go to Dollar Tree, pick up the dried cranberries at a Dollar Tree for $1.25, which would be our only savings as far as the sides, other than possibly getting a little bit smaller squash. But that would be a 64-cent savings. That was bringing our adjusted total down to $20.43, which we're getting even closer to that $20 price point of the original challenge. So we're doing pretty good. Now we have to deal with dessert. Now to dessert portion. I got a cake mix, I got sour cream, and I got coconut flakes. The plan is to make a coconut cake. I have to find the recipe, but I'm pretty sure that the icing is just sour cream and coconut flakes. I don't remember the exact proportion. There may be a little bit of vanilla in there, which I think it would be totally fine to leave out. I don't believe you add any extra sugar because I think there's enough sugar in the sweetened coconut flakes that you don't need it. You may add something like cornstarch to thicken it a little bit, but I don't think so. But that is my plan for dessert. So now let me break it down for you a little bit more. Okay, now let's talk about our dessert. Failed on my what I was limiting myself to is freebies because my cake mix takes 3 eggs. But that's okay. I have 3 eggs, so it's no big deal for me, but it might be a big deal for others. But anyway, this is where we stand. So a cake mix was 99 cents. The coconut was $2.49, and the sour cream was $1.85. The icing, as best as I can remember, I have to find the recipe, was essentially just coconut flakes, sweetened coconut flakes, and sour cream. And you mix them together, and you have to let them sit for a few days so all the flavors go in together before you do your cake. So yeah, that's my coconut cake nutshell recipe there. So yeah, we're doing good. So now what else can we do different with the dessert? Easiest way to change up the dessert is Aldi had pre-made pies. They had some frozen pies and the bake shop pies for $4.99. They had a few different varieties. You can get a pie for $4.99, and that's going to save you 34 cents above doing the coconut cake like I had done. And look at that. Our total is $20.09. We are almost at the original $20 challenge. Wow, but can I make it? And so I was thinking, I wonder if I can actually make this under the $20 challenge. And why, yes, I can make it under the $20 challenge because I can just buy a store-bought box frosting for my cake, which is $1.75 at Aldi, making that total $2.24. It's an additional $2.75 savings over doing the pie, which would bring our total down to $17.34 with all my adjustments on here, and these are adjustments that I don't think anybody would notice if I were to do those changes for a dinner, or anybody would really care. It's just my preferences. So yeah, I was actually quite surprised that I would be able to get the total down to $17.34 as I was analyzing my prices and how I would change things. But easily in my area, you could easily get a dozen eggs for $2.66 and take that out of your freebie pile. Got plenty of eggs for this if you want to pull some mayonnaise and mustard from your into your freebie piles, and you can make deviled eggs for an appetizer. In addition, on this $20 budget, I mean, granted, there's some other freebies I gave myself that that you might not have, such as the butter. But if you didn't buy the eggs with this because you had the eggs, you could easily buy margarine. Butter might be a little bit tight in $2.66, but you could easily buy margarine. You could possibly buy a two-stick pack of butter in that $2.66 price range, because I'm probably going to use one stick plus a few tablespoons in my preparation. So yeah, you could do that. If you wanted to go back up to the $25 budget at this point, there's loads of opportunities for appetizers. You could get the eggs and do deviled eggs. You're also going to have some celery left over, so you can get some carrots and also some ranch dressing. And then you can have deviled eggs and veggies and ranch dressing. That's good appetizer. So really, I was actually quite surprised. If you can't tell how astonished I am that you could actually do a reasonable Thanksgiving dinner for $20. $25, you could do an even better one. And that just really depends on what freebies you're going to give yourself or what you already have in your pantry. But yeah, it is possible. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me. Like any other YouTube channel, you can like, subscribe, share, all those other things. And hopefully I'll see you again soon. We'll see if I'm getting back to this YouTube thing.